We turn to Seth Doane, reporting from the Holy Land, where just about everything can be political, even archaeology.
In the Judean desert, a complex past is being unearthed into a complicated present. This site sits along an ancient pilgrimage route to Jerusalem, one Jesus' parents were said to have walked.
When Mariah and Joseph came from Nazareth to Bethlehem, this is the path that they took.
Back then, this land was called Judea, after the people who would become known as the Jews. Over the centuries, it would be conquered by empires of varying beliefs.
The original door went from here to here.
Exactly.
It's one of at least 5,000 archaeological sites here, a place most commonly known as the West Bank. Some call it by its ancient or biblical name, Judea and Samaria. The UN says it's occupied Palestinian territory.
With this doorway, you can really see the different eras, the different people who were here.
Exactly. In archaeology, sometimes it's not just layer, sometimes it's horizontal.
That complexity has additional layers today, as A.L. Fryman knows well. He's Deputy Staff Officer for Archaeology of Israel's Civil Administration of Judea and Samaria.
I don't act by political views. If we weren't excavating this site, it would probably be half buried.
You said your role is not a political one, but inherently, isn't it political when Israelis are on Palestinian land?
I'm just an employee of the civil administration. My job is to protect, preserve, and make approachable all the archaeological sites.
But for whom? That's the question Talia Ezrahi raises.
Archaeology has become a way of proving that we were here. So whenever we look in the ground, we're always hoping to find something that has some indication of Jewish life in the land of Israel.
A sort of, we were here first?
Exactly.
Ezrahi is with the left-wing Israeli archaeology group Emek Sheveh. She claims archaeology has been weaponized to make certain lands off bounds to Palestinians.
It's been weaponized in the service of enhancing and entrenching settlements and claiming more and more land that were once Palestinian lands.
Take Nebi Samuel, where it's believed the prophet Samuel was buried 1,000 years before Christ. A Palestinian village was dismantled to make way for what's become a tourist site.
So this was your home?
Eid Barakat was forced to move from here when his house was demolished.
Your home was all of...
He's been in temporary housing since 1971 because he claims he cannot get a building permit. Israel is now allocating nearly $100 million, in part to develop archaeological and tourism sites in the West Bank.
We met Eid. He used to live just above where we're standing. Isn't it a good thing that this has been excavated, preserved?
First of all, it is a beautiful site, but at the same time, there is a very important chapter of the site that is missing, and that is the story of the Palestinian village that lived here.
So many parts of history were completely erased just because someone decided to come and build on top of it.
Adi Shagrai is an Israeli archaeologist.
We are now walking towards the ancient city gate,
whom we met in the West Bank town of Sebastia.
It was the capital city of the Kingdom of Israel.
Shagrai says humanity benefits when these ancient sites are protected. She's part of an Israeli group called Preserving the Eternal, which works in the West Bank.
For 100 years, there hasn't been proper excavations in this site, academic research.
But you can't do this work here and be completely divorced from the political realities.
The political reality is that sites are being destroyed.
The group identifies archaeological sites they deem need preservation, including this theater, which is more than 2,000 years old. But to get here, the Israelis had to drive off-road around the Palestinian town because tensions are so high.
The question some raise, though, is how much of this is about archaeology, how much of this is about a land grab?
My main mission is to have these sites safe, protected, and preserved. If it were to be done by the Palestinian Authority, fine, but unfortunately, they don't do that.
The Israelis are not allowing us to work any kind of work inside this site.
There's no one here guarding this.
If you start working here, you will see the drones above you, the soldiers will come, the settlers will come.
Zed Azari says his family has lived in Sebastia for at least 20 generations. He makes a living giving tours of these sites, including the theater. But as a Palestinian, he says he's not allowed near them when the Israelis are working the site.
We have a cathedral and a mosque together.
In November, Israel issued a land expropriation order to take control of more than 300 acres of Sebastia. Azari says this would sever the town from their heritage, farmland, and a major part of their economy.
It's just about controlling land, stealing land.
Israelis have told us this is not political, this is simply about archaeology.
This is totally political. We protect our culture and our ruins since thousands of years.
I thought that archaeology was going to be only about facts. The finds themselves are not actually in the past, they're in the present.
Rafi Greenberg is a professor of archaeology at Tel Aviv University and is co-founder of the group Emek Shaveh. He remembers being a student first studying artifacts.
They're on our table, they're looking at us and we're looking at them. And those pieces of evidence don't add up to anything unless we make them add up to something.
Archaeology is storytelling, Greenberg says, which is exemplified at the city of David, where he was excavating around the same time CBS's Bob Simon visited in 1980.
Israeli archaeologists have been condemned by the United Nations for digging in what the UN calls occupied territory. This is East Jerusalem, the Arab sector. And they're convinced this is the site where Israel's most powerful king built his capital 1,000 years before Christ.
Today, the city of David is a national park, complete with a zip line.
So that became sort of a blueprint.
A blueprint which Rafi Greenberg argues is partly a settler project and a roadmap for other archaeological sites. Murals showing the eyes of Palestinians watch from neighboring Silwan as dozens of Palestinian families have been displaced or have eviction proceedings against them. Israeli authorities say they only demolish structures without proper permits and after all legal proceedings are exhausted.
They're using the antiquities and the control of antiquities to connect different points within that part of Jerusalem to prevent Palestinians from expanding their footprint, and their eventual aim is to drive them out.
We wanted to hear what someone at the top of Israel's government thought about these allegations, and got to meet Israel's Minister of Heritage, Amichai Eliyahu, at the city of David. We're essentially stepping on the story that the entire Bible is based on, he told us.
200 meters down.
The minister, who's part of a far-right political faction, took us to the Old City aqueducts.
To find the secret, we need to go down.
At one point, stopping to pull what he called a magical ring out of his jacket pocket. Why magical? Because it's been waiting in the ground for 2,000 years, he explained. It was found on Mount Gerizim in the West Bank. Engraved in Hebrew is Judaism's holiest prayer, the Shema.
Always says, Shema Israel, Shem Elokeinu, Shem Echad.
If people ask, is this land ours, he added, here is the simplest and most moving proof.
Ze tabat bat 2,000 shana.
Throughout the site, stories from the reign of King David are connected to the archaeology.
What about the story of the Palestinians, even the Palestinians who once lived here?
ההיסטוריה באמת לא היה עם פלסטיני, נכון?
So according to history, there was no Palestinian people, right? The minister said. We don't know who the Palestinian king was. It's a people that was invented 60 years ago.
You see the minaret for the mosque here?
That made us think of something we'd heard back in Sebastia.
You're saying this is the museum of sorts.
Yeah.
When Zed Azarhi took us to see a plaque which made no mention that Sebastia had been the capital city of the Kingdom of Israel.
It seems like on both sides there's an erasure of history. Mm-hmm. Here you don't include a Jewish history here in this town.
Here we are talking about a period.
You mentioned Herod, the Roman leader. You mentioned the Canaanites, but there is the missing of the Israelites.
To say this is a Jewish kingdom or a Jewish city, it's not really that correct. This is my heritage. This is not the Zionist history or culture. This is mine. We are the continuation.
This is mine. That's what we kept hearing on both sides.
The Israeli group Emek Shaveh says that Israeli control of those archaeological sites in the West Bank is in essence a land claim.
האם עמק שווה מסכימים?
Does Emek Sheveh agree that these historical sites belong to the history of the Jewish people? If the answer is yes, then we must preserve these sites, the heritage minister told us. And if the answer is no, then let them prove it belongs to the Palestinian people. For now, there is no proof.
That's another way of weaponizing. That is, you attach more importance to certain kinds of heritage and less importance to other kinds of heritage.
In the founding of Israel in 1948, the first prime minister, Ben-Gurion, talked about how important archaeology was to the state of Israel itself.
Every nation needs a unifying myth, something that will bring everyone together to relate to one story that is their story.
Greenberg insists that despite efforts to turn archaeology into a national story, it's usually one of a shared history.
Right now you don't see much, so I'll just pour some water on it.
Wow.
A history which was on display back at that excavation with A.L. Fryman.
We have Jewish culture, we have the Christian culture, we have the Muslim culture, it's all combined. Sites that started as one and ended as another. Sometimes it's not as black as white as you see.
Rather, these discoveries can be a dusty, sandy gray. They're part of a continuum, tantalizing glimpses of another time seen through the lens of today.